Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Brazil, the far-right former army captain Jair Bolsonaro was sworn in as Brazil's 42nd president on New Year's Day, declaring liberation from socialism and promising to restore law and order to Brazilian society.
It's also urgent that we put an end to this ideology of defending the criminals and criminalizing the police. This has brought about an increase in violence in Brazil and in the power of organized crime, taking the lives of those who are innocent, destroying families, and bringing insecurity everywhere. We are going to restore order in this country. We are aware of this awesome responsibility and the challenges that we will face. We know where we want to go and the potential that Brazil has.
Many fear Brazil's young democracy is now at risk. For years, Bolsonaro has praised Brazil's former military dictatorship while speaking in favor of torture and threatening to destroy, imprison, or banish his political opponents. Later in the broadcast, we'll air our interview with Fernando Haddad, the Workers' Party candidate who lost in the runoff election against Bolsonaro last October. The partial government shutdown enters its 12th day today as President Trump prepares to meet with congressional leaders just a day before Democrats take control of the House. President Trump's insisted on including $5 billion for border wall funding before he'll agree to sign any spending measure. 800,000 government workers' lives have been thrown into disarray by the shutdown, with 380,000 workers furloughed and another 420,000 forced to work without pay since the House and Senate failed to pass an end-of-year spending bill on December 22nd. After headlines, we'll speak with lawyers for the federal workers union that's suing the Trump administration, saying it's illegal to make federal workers work without pay. U.S. border agents tear gas migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border early Tuesday. The attack occurred in the same area as the tear gassing in November at the border between Tijuana and San Diego. The tear gas reportedly affected women and children who are amidst the group of targeted migrants. Meanwhile, President Trump addressed the deaths of 2 migrant children in U.S. custody Saturday. In a tweet, he blamed Democrats for their deaths, saying, quote, "Any deaths of children or others at the border was strictly the fault of the Democrats and their pathetic immigration policies that allow people to make the long trek thinking they can enter our country illegally. They can't. If we had a wall, they wouldn't even try," the president tweeted. In Texas, immigrant rights activists shut down the entrance to the Tornillo tent camp on New Year's Eve, where several thousand immigrant youth are being detained. The activists have been organizing daily actions for the past 2 weeks under the banner of Christmas in Tornillo.
So my name is Denise Benavides. I am a Dallas County community organizer, and we are here at the Tornillo Port of Entry in front of a concentration camp for Central American minors who are teenagers between the ages of 12 and 17. This is the only way we're going to shut this place down, is with resistance, is with action, is with our voices, is with the stories that we hear. We're tired of this. This should not be happening in America. We are the most incarcerated country in the world, and it's sad that we celebrate freedom.
The Tornillo facility has come under fire from immigrant and human rights activists, Democratic lawmakers, and health professionals. Last month, the shelter operator, Baptist Child and Family Services, said they expected to close the facility by mid-January. Meanwhile, in Arizona, the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office referred apparent evidence of abuse at a children's immigration prison to prosecutors Monday. Last week, a local publication posted surveillance video reportedly dating from September from the Hacienda del Sol detention center in Youngtown, showing staffers dragging, slapping, and pushing children. The facility, run by Southwest Key, was shut down at the end of October. The Arizona Department of Health Services had accused Southwest Key in September of failing to provide evidence of staff background checks. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Brazil, where both men were attendants for the new Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro's inauguration. Pompeo addressed Trump's recent decision to withdraw U.S. troops from Syria.
The decision the President made on Syria in no way changes anything that this administration is working on alongside Israel. The counter-ISIS campaign continues, our efforts to counter Iranian aggression continue, and our commitment to Middle East stability and the protection of Israel continues in the same way it did before that decision was made.
U.S. officials said Monday the military will have 4 months to withdraw troops from Syria, rather than the 30 days initially announced by Trump. The withdrawal will be overseen by Patrick Shanahan, the former Boeing executive, the weapons manufacturer. Shanahan became acting Secretary of Defense on New Year's Day after the former Pentagon chief, James Mattis, resigned in protest of Trump's foreign policy. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also met with President Bolsonaro in Brazil. Netanyahu said the newly inaugurated president told him Brazil would move their embassy to Jerusalem following the U.S. move to May of last year. Bolsonaro reportedly said it's not a question of if, just a question of when. Honduras is also reportedly considering moving their embassy to Jerusalem. In Gaza, mourners gathered at the funeral of 26-year-old Karam Fayyad on Saturday, a Palestinian man who was killed Friday by Israeli forces during a protest at the separation barrier with Israel. Friday marked the 40th consecutive week of protests under the banner of the Great March of Return. Israeli forces have killed at least 240 Palestinian protesters and injured at least 18,000 others since March 30th of last year. The United States and Israel are, as of yesterday, officially out of UNESCO. That's the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. The Trump administration announced a withdrawal in October of 2017, citing anti-Israel bias, with Israel following suit immediately after. Both the U.S. and Israel had stopped paying member dues since 2011 after Palestine joined UNESCO. In a televised New Year's address, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said he would like to meet with President Trump for a second summit on a possible denuclearization deal, while threatening to resume nuclear efforts if the U.S. does not offer any concessions on sanctions.
I am always ready to sit down again with the U.S. president at any time, and will make efforts to produce an outcome that the international community would welcome. However, if the U.S. miscalculates our people's patience, forces something upon us, and pursues sanctions and pressure without keeping a promise it made in front of the world, we have no option but to explore a new path in order to protect our sovereignty and achieve peace on the Korean peninsula.
In a historic summit in June, Trump and Kim pledged to work toward complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, but have since been at an impasse over the issue of lifting sanctions on North Korea. Netflix is coming under fire for pulling an episode of the U.S. comedian Hasan Minhaj's show Patriot Act from Saudi Arabia after officials from the kingdom complained to the streaming company. The episode, which became available in late October, a few weeks after Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi's murder in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, was sharply critical of the Saudi royal family, and in particular Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
MBS was shocked by all of the anger over the killing of one journalist. According to the Wall Street Journal, on a phone call with Jared Kushner, MBS asked, why the outrage? And frankly, MBS's confusion is completely understandable. He's been getting away with autocratic shit like this for years with almost no blowback from the international community.
Minhaj slams the Saudi regime and the Crown Prince for its cover-up of Khashoggi's killing, its persecution of women and human rights activists, and its central role in the ongoing war on Yemen. He also calls out the long-standing relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States and skewers the Western portrayal of the Crown Prince as a modern reformer. In Bangladesh, at least 17 people were killed during violent clashes between the leading party and its opposition as voters headed to the polls Sunday. The ruling Awami League party swept the parliamentary elections, ensuring a third term for the Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina. Opposition leaders and election observers have called out gross irregularities in voting, alleging widespread voter intimidation and restrictions on polling agents. In the Philippines, flash floods and landslides killed at least 85 people since Saturday when a tropical depression dumped torrential rain onto the Philippines. Search and rescue teams are looking for survivors. Meanwhile, a landslide in Indonesia's West Java province killed at least 15 people on New Year's Eve, with scores still missing. This came just over a week after a devastating tsunami provoked by the eruption of the Krakatoa volcano killed at least 430 Indonesians. Massachusetts Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren announced Monday she's launching an exploratory committee for a possible 2020 presidential campaign. She becomes the first highest-profile Democrat to confirm her likely presidential bid in what is expected to be a crowded primary field. Her video announcement took on the familiar themes of economic inequality and reining in corporate greed. This is Warren speaking to reporters later that day.
America's middle class is getting hollowed out, and opportunity for too many of our young people is shrinking. So I'm in this fight all the way. Right now, Washington works great for the wealthy and the well-connected. It's just not working for anyone else. But I am optimistic. I believe in what we can do together. I'm going to build a grassroots campaign.
On Tuesday, Senator Warren said she plans to visit Iowa this weekend. Iowa is a popular first stop for presidential candidates as it's the first state to vote in the primaries. Climate activists pushing for the creation of a Green New Deal committee when Democrats take control of the House this week were met with disappointment Friday when presumptive incoming House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced the creation of another environmental panel instead. The Select Committee on the Climate Crisis is set to be led by long-standing Florida Congressmember Kathy Castor. Proponents of the Green New Deal have argued the panel will be too weak as it will not have legislative power and may not have subpoena power. The proposal for a Green New Deal also sought to bar Congress members who accept money from the fossil fuel industry. At least 45 Congress members have backed the Green New Deal, spearheaded by incoming New York Congressmember Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. High-profile senators, including Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker, and Elizabeth Warren, have also come out in support of the proposal. The Trump administration's proposed rule changes that would make it far easier for coal-fired power plants to release mercury and other toxins into the atmosphere. The plan proposed by the Environmental Protection Agency Friday would change how the federal government calculates the costs of pollution on human health, dramatically downplaying the financial burden to society from deaths and illnesses. The Obama administration estimated the rules now set to be overturned would prevent 11,000 premature deaths each year. Incoming Republican Senator Mitt Romney of Utah writes President Trump has not risen to the mantle of the office. In a New Year's Day op-ed published by The Washington Post, Romney says that he supports Trump's policies, including tax cuts, deregulation, and the appointment of conservative judges to federal courts. But Romney says Trump has failed to show honesty and integrity as president, writing, quote, "With the nation so divided, resentful, and angry, presidential leadership and qualities of character is indispensable, and it is in this province where the incumbent shortfall has been most glaring." Romney's among the freshman members of Congress set to be sworn in by Vice President Mike Pence on Thursday. The Trump administration's taken steps to shield the Interior Department from public scrutiny, proposing rule changes that would allow it to deny Freedom of Information Act requests it considers too large or, quote, unreasonably burdensome. The Interior Department's proposed rule changes were filed in the Federal Register on Friday, just 2 weeks after Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke was forced to step down amid 17 federal investigations into his suspected ethics violations and corruption. In California, the 2-year-old boy whose Yemeni mother was banned from entering the U.S. due to the Trump administration's travel ban died on Friday. Abdullah Hassan, who was an American citizen, had a rare brain disorder and was being treated in the U.S., but his mother, Shaima Swila, had to sue in order to get a waiver to travel because she was from Yemen, one of the 5 majority Muslim countries whose citizens are barred from entering the U.S. They were reunited just over a week before the toddler's death. This is Abdullah Hassan's father, Ali Hassan.
We are here today because my government failed our family. I am a U.S. citizen. My son is a U.S. citizen. The Muslim ban kept my wife from coming to the U.S. for over a year. It forced me to choose between my son's health and keeping our family together. We are not angry, and we know our son did not die in vain. We hope through Abdullah's struggle and passing. The people who are affected by the Muslim ban from Yemen, Libya, Iran, Somalia, and Syria, that we hope through his life, policy will be changed and families will be reunited.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.